Welcome to episode 11, Lucky 11, Lucky 11.
Yay!
This is the Falcon.
This is the Dove.
And you have to forgive us because we were out partying just a little bit yesterday because it was Dove's birthday! Yay! And, you know,
My birthday!
it was an absolutely perfect day, if I do say.
Yes.
I hope for you
wonderful.
it was a perfect day.
It was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Surrounded by really, really cool people.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to give some props to some special people who joined us in the back room in the non-smoking section. And
At the Olive Garden.
At the Olive Garden in Monroeville. There you go. Free publicity.
In our party of 15.
Yes, at our rather large party. They had a rather large party because they are the very handsome, very suave GW, the George Washington University men's tennis team. Yay! And why were they there? Well, they had just finished an earlier match because they are in the championship. Today, I understand they're playing Xavier, and we were waiting to see if we could get a score on that game to see if they were going to go to the finals this weekend.
But it wasn't updated.
It wasn't updated yet. I wasn't able to get those scores, but they have been doing so well. We are so proud of them, and they kind of joined in our celebration to Dove, giving her lots and lots of love, singing beautifully. Not only are these guys mega tennis players,
they sang to me,
but they sang beautifully. And I have to give, again, props to Elliot, who's from Hilton Head.
Now, I'm going to read the names here.
Yes, because he gave us information about certain universities that Dove may be attending in the fall. Hint, hint. And we thank you so much, Elliot and the guys. Props to the names there.
All right, here we go. Here's the boys. I think they were all there, but I'm going to read
I think
them.
they're all there, yeah.
Daniel Balk. Thank you. Elliot Daniels. Mark Dumba. I hope I said that right. Mustafa Genskoy. Genskoy.
Is our buddy from Turkey?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, that's our buddy from Turkey.
Awesome.
Brandon Harris. Ryan Hunter.
Very friendly, Ryan Hunter.
Daniel Ostrometsky, Sam Solver, Wade Schaefer, and Max Waltenberg.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Props to the guys. Thank you for adding to the special evening. It was great. It was great to have that many good-looking men in the same room. Forgive me there. Young men, yes, young men, of course. We hope they do very, very well this weekend. We wish them all the best. And moving forward in their college careers, we have so much stuff to talk about.
Yes, we have a lot of stuff. So
for everybody. If you have
a
little kid, we have special information for you. If you have a college student, we have special information for you.
If you have a dog,
yes,
we have special information
the
for you.
continuing saga of the pet food. And if you are about to send a kid to college, we have some very special information for you. I'm sure if you are in the realm of deciding which schools to go to, you've just received the notices that your child has been accepted, and now you're receiving those financial aid packages and you're going, it's okay. We have some information that you might need. The prince is here. By the way, the prince celebrates a birthday this week. He will be 8 this weekend.
Yay!
Props to Prince.
His birthday's 2 days after mine. We are fellow Aries.
Yes, which is an incredible story. I mean, you could just tell an incredible story about our dog Prince because he was the runt of the litter of labs and was not supposed to survive, was told by a very loving, very caring veterinarian that he probably wouldn't make it. And, you know, here he is about to turn 8. So
8 years later.
You know, every day a blessing. And I'll tell you, he was never trained to be a service dog, but he is great with family, great with kids, great with my mom and her needs. Boomers, we've talked about this sandwich generation. We're going to talk about it a lot more in future episodes.
He licks Falcon's feet.
Yes. What is with the feet thing? But you know, it's very nice. It's kind of massagey. You know,
we think he's part wolf. So licking the alpha dog's legs.
There you go. Honor the alpha female. Ooh. So we have a little bit of everything for everybody tonight. But we're going to start with something that's really important that I heard this week that really shocked me. They're now saying, and I know how they came about the numbers, so it may be a little high, but it's still a startling number. Even if it's half of that, it's a startling number, which is 1 in every 150 children are now being diagnosed with autism. Wow. That blew my mind. And they now have some guidelines that are important for parents to look at as their children are developing. And some of these guidelines don't just end in early childhood. They go right up until late teens and early adulthood. And one of the things that, of course, many groups are discussing are whether or not some children who are autistic are being misdiagnosed. Hyperactive, ADHD, depression, when it's actually autism. And so there's a big push on right now by organizations concerned about people knowing the symptoms of autism. And a big one that kind of took me by surprise a little bit was if a child is a year old and doesn't respond to their name. That's one of the markers to look for, not by itself, but in conjunction with, some other things. We really expect a child to be verbal and put together small sentences by the time they're 2. But not responding to their name. They may have a hearing deficit, so that's something important to pay attention to.
Yes, according to Reuters, most 1-year-olds who didn't react to their name in a study had developmental issues by age 2.
Which is, that's for me, and especially at those numbers, 1 in 150. I'm surprised this isn't at the top of our health care concerns in pediatric medicine. I mean, it should be close to the top because that's a very large issue. If we have that many children who are being diagnosed as autistic, that is a huge number, and we should find out why so many children are being diagnosed as autistic. And there are a lot of theories out there. Many people believe there is a genetic predisposition. A lot of people believe there's an environmental factor. Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. But looking at these key markers, if there is a huge change in social behavior in an older child, it's not necessarily depression. It may be autism. And there may have been something that could trigger that response. The important thing is to keep the lines of communication open with your pediatrician and your healthcare professionals. And make sure, parents, I know, nobody ever wants to show up at a PTA thing anymore or an open house at school unless there's a problem. And if you want to come to open house, they suddenly think, oh my gosh, what's happening? What did we do wrong? You know what? That's not what they were designed for. Those meetings were designed to keep parents and teachers on the same page. So superintendents, don't get alarmed when a parent calls you and says, hi, I'd like to talk to you about how my child is doing. Can we arrange a date and a time to discuss this with ex-teachers and the principal? It doesn't mean there's a problem. It just means a parent wants to keep their thumb on the pulse of how their child is doing developmentally. They do not want to get 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks down a semester or 3/4 of the way through a year and then hear, oh, by the way, I noticed Johnny isn't reading very well, or he's kind of withdrawing from the class. No. Everybody needs to stay in touch. And teachers, I know you're overwhelmed. In my opinion, if it were up to me, teachers would get $1 million, okay? Because teachers, school bus drivers, anybody who dedicates their lives to taking care of our elders or our children should never have to worry about how they're ever going to pay their bills. That's my personal opinion. That way, people who want to do those jobs would actually do those jobs extremely well and would never get stressed out, at least not about the money. But I know you're stressed. But here's the thing. Keep in touch with the parents. If there's a kid you've got in your class, you have never seen their parents, and they've been in that school 3-4 years, and you don't know what the parents look like, just for kicks and giggles, principals, hey, call them in and say, hey, no problem. We just want to sit down and talk with you about their progress, about their portfolio, whatever. But stay on top of it because it is important to the future well-being of these children that they're correctly diagnosed with whatever, or not incorrectly diagnosed and treated for years with drugs they didn't need that were inappropriate, because that can cause other health risks.
And they're also saying that doctors may want to include the name test in child checkups at age 1.
I think that's a great idea.
And intermittently.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful idea.
Because it's real easy to do. It's a real easy test that they're saying.
Exactly. And you want to make sure that they're not having either a hearing deficit or some sort of learning difficulty. But with the numbers being as high as they are, something has to be done. And we really do need to start looking at, it's got to be beyond genetic components, because we didn't have numbers like this 100 years ago. We didn't. So we need to really start paying attention to what might be impacting our children negatively. So at any age, a social withdrawal, pay attention to that. It's not just sometimes teenage angst. And even if it is, don't we want to stay on top of it? Of course we do.
Yeah, so next we're going to talk about the pet food recall again.
Oh, yes.
Now they've added dog biscuits to this pet food recall, and this is from the Associated Press. The recall of pet foods and treats contaminated with an industrial chemical expanded Thursday, my birthday, to include dog biscuits made by an Alabama company and sold by Walmart under the Ol Roy brand. OL''Roy brand. The Food and Drug Administration said the manufacturer, Sunshine Mills Incorporated, is recalling dog biscuits made with imported Chinese wheat gluten. Testing has revealed the wheat gluten, a protein source, was contaminated with melamine used to make plastics and other industrial products. Also, Menu Foods,
yep.
Menu Foods, a major manufacturer of wet food, expanded its original recall to include a broader range of dates and varieties. Menu Foods was the first of at least 6 companies to recall the now more than 100 brands of pet foods and treats made with the contaminated ingredient.
This is something you have to stay up on constantly. What I'm hearing from a lot of people now are either they're buying organic or they're making their own.
Buy all organic. Just be safe and buy all organic, because this is getting bigger and bigger. Don't assume that what you're feeding your pet is safe now, because it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's best to go to Whole Foods or any other place that has organic pet food, or better yet, make your own.
Make your own. And a lot of people are saying, I'm ready to make my own food. Not as easy as it may sound. Obviously, if you're going to stick to the market, avoid products with wheat gluten in it. Read the ingredients on the back. No wheat gluten at this stage of the game. The only suspect in the recall. Then, by all means, don't give it to your pet. Now, making food. I noticed today, I got something in my email. Mother Earth News is, I guess in the magazine as well as online, has some information if you want to make your own pet food. So go to motherearthnews.com and you can get information on making your own pet food, because your pet does need a balance of some meats and some vegetables and some starches to make sure that they're getting everything that they need. Now, I have to be honest with you. We've had Prince Edward here 8 years. He never ate dog food. Yeah, we have a immensely spoiled, rotten dog. But that was because he had a very, very, very fragile digestive system. We tried him on some things. It didn't go well. So we've been making his food ever since. And it can be done. And they can live healthfully.
And Sunshine Mills said that it would post a complete list of the recalled dog biscuits on its website, sunshinemills.com. So that's for Sunshine Mills. It says that this recall is one of the largest pet food recalls in history, said Sundloff. The FDA has received more than 12,000 complaints, and a bunch of pets have unfortunately died.
And make sure that your veterinarian, if you have had a pet fall ill or worse, make sure that you follow up with your veterinarian and make sure that veterinarian reports that pet loss to the FDA.
Yes, because this article's only saying that 15 deaths have been confirmed, and that's so wrong.
So wrong.
That's so wrong. It's over 100 now, isn't it?
Yes, it is. The important thing is to update regularly on this story, because it is ever changing and ever evolving.
Right. And we'll keep you updated on this story as we go. It's bound to get bigger, so So we're gonna keep you posted on what's happening. So once again, that is pet food sold by Walmart under Olroy brand. That's under Sunshine Mills and Menu Foods, which now covers cuts and gravy style products. Made between November 8th and March 6th.
And we have to update our films. There have been so many new movies coming out.
Last week we saw The Last Mimsy.
Yes, we did. For those of you looking for family entertainment over the Passover, Easter, and our friends in China had a holiday on your birthday. That was pretty cool.
It was. It's
a great holiday week.
Yeah, it was an interesting holiday. Gravestone sweeping day or something.
Yeah. But this is a very sacred week.
It's a holiday.
And families get to spend a lot of time together. For Passover, it's about, this is great. So, families, The Last Mimsy is adorable.
Last Mimsy is great. We saw it, and wonderful. Absolutely wonderful effects, first of all.
Oh, the effects rocked. And the film was directed by Bob Shea.
Bob Shea, the head of New Line.
Who, you think these guys, they're big office guys.
He doesn't usually direct.
Yeah, they're not going to come
This guy
out.
doesn't usually direct. By the way, Bob Shea, if you don't know, is the man who made the $300 million gamble on the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So now he's directing his own movies.
Yes. I mean, you could really thank Bob for that ever having been made in the form that it was, with 3 separate films. And because originally they were coming to him doing 2 films, like Bakshi had wanted to do back in 1970s for cost's sake. And Bob Shea was the one who reached deep into the pockets and said, hey, you got 3 books, you need 3 movies. So seeing him back behind a camera again directing was really, really well done.
It was really, really good. And,
nice family film.
Now we must say, I don't want to use the word warn, but I guess I have, that this film is not for people who aren't into the weird stuff.
Well, yeah. It's called The Last Mimsy. I mean, anybody who's ever read Lewis Carroll, who knows anything about Alice Through the Looking Glass.
I'm just saying that because some people have a real problem with mysterious things like aliens, UFOs, time travel, all
smart children.
Smart children. Yeah.
I really enjoyed this because these kids were just brilliant.
These kids were brilliant.
They're brilliant kids and they're brilliant actors.
It wasn't Disneyized, which we loved.
No, it wasn't. No offense, Disney, but you know what we mean.
No offense, Disney. Yeah.
Let's face it, you should have Bill Paxton, who did The Greatest Game Ever Played, direct a lot of your movies.
Which was a great Disney movie, by the way.
Yes. And we know you're doing Meet the Robinsons, and Meet the Robinsons is very cute. It's animated, but this is live action with kids who could actually act. It was great.
Yes, everything was thoroughly believable throughout the whole thing, which of a movie of this type is kind of hard to do.
It really is.
To make everything believable and the effects believable and just have everything come together as a unit.
And Michael Clark Duncan,
what?
Who has that incredible deep voice, who was in The Green Mile.
Was he the FBI agent?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And, he's hot. So... but he was great.
He was great.
And it was a very, very balanced cast.
Very well acted.
Very well acted.
There one thing that jumped out at us, there were a lot of Pink Floyd references.
I personally enjoyed that. Eddie, why did I have a science teacher who wore a Pink Floyd t-shirt? Wait a minute. I think I did. I'm sure I did. If not in high school, I'm sure I did in college.
Yes, and even the kids were great in this. The kids were wonderful. And for those of you who don't know the general plot, what happens is at the beginning, this family with 2 kids, boy and a girl, it's summer vacation, and they go to their summer beach house, and the kids are playing
Easter vacation.
Easter vacation?
Easter vacation.
Oh, okay. And they the kids go out on the beach and they find this big metal ball chest looking thing and they find what's in it and there's a lot of stuff in it, but they don't really know what it is and
what it does.
And what it does. and what's really cool is it looks different to them than what the parents see.
Because of course, children see things more magically and beautifully than adults do who are removing themselves from that special vision.
Exactly. Yeah,
so it's very cute.
One of the pieces was this green, clear piece of glass looking thing, which had all these little moving molecules inside it, and it was really mysterious looking, and
it looked like a cross-cut piece of quartz or calcite.
Yeah, and when the mother sees it, she thinks it's this slate rock thing.
Yeah, it looks like a piece of slate roof.
Looks like a piece of slate roof, and she said, "Oh, it would make a great paperweight."
Okay, so you got to see it. That's all we're going to tell you.
You got to see it.
You have to see it.
But over the course of the story, they start developing these special abilities, and
which really come from looking at their world differently.
Right.
They begin to see and experience with their senses
and they're geniuses, and they know about all these things.
And they were geniuses to begin with,
about other countries and other cultures that they wouldn't know about otherwise, and it's really cool. They start developing these abilities, and it's really cool, and it kind of focuses around this bunny rabbit, which is a mimsy, and yes, we were both right. Mom was right about where the spiral was on the bunny. It's not
belly.
It's not on his head. It's on the belly.
It's on his belly.
It's on the belly. But I was right about it being the mimsy.
Yes.
The bunny rabbit is the mimsy.
Yes.
So we were both right.
For all those people who are going to race back and take out their Alice through the Looking Glass.
Yes.
And
it's a really good film. Go see it. It was an incredible film. That's all we're going to tell you. We loved it. Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Two thumbs up.
For the family.
Falcon Dove thumbs up.
We got to talk about the family films this week, Something fun and interesting.
And I got Happy Feet for my birthday.
Happy Feet! Happy Feet is just adorable.
Happy Feet's adorable.
How great to watch it, particularly if you're in the Northeast right now and it's snowing.
Yes, it snowed on my birthday. 2 days before my birthday, it was 70-freaking-8. and 2 days later, it's 35 on my birthday. And I'm like, no!
Yes.
But I was happy because everyone we invited showed up to my birthday party, all 15. Well, 13.
Yes.
Showed up.
It was 15. And a little
guy.
Besides
us.
Yes, a little guy.
And a little guy, a friend of ours, his baby. Hi, Harrison. Hi, Misty.
Boy, he is so cute. And he is so smart. But I understand what they mean by, will they answer to their name? Because that was the first thing I did. And I called him, and he immediately leaned over and looked at me and made funny faces. And we played peekaboo behind the napkin. And it was wonderful. And that's what we want. We want children to be vibrant and communicating with us. And there could be the strong silent types, and there's nothing wrong with them. But you definitely want to watch if they're not interacting with you in order to communicate their brilliance. Mm-hmm. That's important.
And one more thing about The Last Mimsy. One thing that I really, really liked about it, which was one of the messages, was to never lose your inner child.
Exactly.
To never lose your inner child. Never lose that innocent belief about the world. And I think that was really cool of them.
Always leave your eyes open to special things.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was great.
Because if you do that, who knows what you can do?
Who knows what you can see?
All right, next we got a story about Apple. Apple, you looked at this earlier.
Oh, yes. This is the EMI and Apple offer. Now,
yes,
for those who have been downloading songs, you can download them on your iPod.
Off of Apple iTunes.
But you can't put it on a disc.
Right,
take
because
it with
they're protected.
You, like in the car, because it's protected.
You can only listen to it on the computer, and if your computer crashes, you lose the songs.
This would be bad.
Not that this happened to us or anything.
Or anything like that. Like a power surge, and then...
If your computer crashes, you're doomed.
Doomed. So, with the exception of the Beatle catalog, now everything that's EMI will be available with, less protection in place, so that...
Except for the Beatles, so sorry, Beatles fans.
Catalog, yeah. You can still download the Beatles catalog, you just can't do that transfer thing to other medium and take it with you. And I think this is good because, it's promoting the sharing and viability of music that people might not hear otherwise.
Which is nice.
The music industry
without copy protection software. Yeah, when you download it, you get that little lock symbol next to it.
This is a complicated issue,
and you can't do anything about it.
Right.
This article, this is from Associated Press. The agreement means that customers of Apple iTunes Store will soon be able to play downloaded songs by the Rolling Stones, Norah Jones, Coldplay, and other top-selling artists without the copying restrictions once imposed by their label. EMI said almost all of its catalog, excluding music by the Beatles, is included in the deal. So that's a lot of music. Singles and albums free from copy protection software and with higher sound quality will be offered as a premium product, the companies announced at a London news conference. They'll pay a higher price for the premium singles, but the same price for albums, either with or without the copy protection software. Yeah, albums are usually $10 to $14 on iTunes. Mm-hmm. So that is really cool. The announcement follows calls by Apple chief executive Steve Jobs earlier this year for the world's 4 major record companies, including EMI, to start selling songs online without copy protection software. So it worked.
I downloaded a song today. The brand new Evanescence video and song for Sweet Sacrifice. Very well done video. I like their videos anyway. I loved Call Me When You're Sober. I love that song. Just because I can find some personal reference to it in my own life.
Aww.
About a boyfriend many moons ago. But anyway, I digress. Sweet Sacrifice video is one of the best music videos I've seen in a long time. I just needed to mention that because I think they're a pretty impressive band. I like them. I particularly liked the way this video was shot. You kind of have to see it. It has that kind of etheric, altered world appearance, but it's so cool and sexy. It was very well done. Very well done.
Yeah, some say that the lifting of the software restrictions could boost sales of online music, which currently account for around 10% of global music sales. So, yeah, that could make it go up.
Everyone still acquires their music differently.
Right.
And, you and I are working on a project we can't really talk about, but it has a lot to do with the music industry and the history of music. And it's a difficult issue when you start talking about how do you access music. Because music stores are vanishing. And it's putting a lot of people out of business with the technology. But then I wonder if we had one technological snafu, we would really need to have that backup of CD and vinyl.
To have the music stores. Yeah, exactly. And I think that this is a really good thing, because if you can copy those songs onto a disc, then if your computer does crash, then you've got them on a disc. The music will never go away. You know?
Well, at least not in that form.
Not
have
in
another
that
form.
Yeah, you put it on another form, and you could copy it over and over again, and you could put it online, and if the internet's still intact, even if your computer isn't, then you're fine.
And you might be wondering, like, why are we saying that? They're like, is something like happening with the internet?
We'll get to that later.
We'll get to that, but it has a little bit to do with sun's flares, solar spots. and 2011. So, it's something we need to kind of think about technologically to put some protections in place.
Now, don't worry, we're not any of those doomsday people.
Nah,
the world's ending. No, don't worry. But
changing.
We're serious.
Changing.
It's changing, but we don't think the world's ending.
No, well, end is... Oh, I know where the world's ending is. It's in that new Pirates of the Caribbean film of Captain Jack Sparrow at World's End.
We just saw the trailer for that.
Yes, we did.
We just saw the trailer for that. I don't know how long it had been out, but... It had been out for a while, but we just saw it, and it looked fantastic. It looked fantastic. Good. So that's coming out in May 25th, I believe. And so that's weird. Spidey and Pirates of the Caribbean are coming out in the same month. But
yeah, everyone's kind of calling the summer sequel.
The summer of sequels. I don't like that.
I don't like
name,
that terminology.
First
of all, it's
sequels.
Inaccurate. It would be the summer of sequentials.
Remove the word sequel from your vocabulary, please.
Yes, because unless it's Biodome 2, most of the time it's not a sequel.
not sequels, a continuation, an installment. Use any other word but sequel, please.
Please.
I'm from the Lord of the Rings era where they kept calling the Lord of the Rings films sequels.
It's like, no.
It's one story, guys. One story. One story. All right. That's Dove's rant of the week for now.
For the moment.
You might get more. Okay, now we're going to get into, this is interesting. It's a human brain parasite that allegedly alters fear.
Yes, now people hear brain parasite and they think, oh my gosh. Apparently, it's not fatal. But it is a brain parasite. And there were some tests in rats.
Yeah, there's been a discovery that could shed light on how fear is generated.
Fear and phobia.
Mm-hmm.
And this is fascinating. Parasite that can control, and I think they mean this in a good way, what we're afraid of or not afraid of. And we're not talking about just your normal, right of flight because you're in danger, but larger issues of complicated things like rats, they need to watch out for predators.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, this particular parasite in rats helps them be afraid of cats and cat urine and other things so that they don't get eaten.
Yeah, well, it makes them attracted to it.
Yeah, well, yeah, if you use the parasite, it alters.
What happened in the study was that they usually have an innate fear of cat urine, whether they've seen a cat or not.
That's logical.
But then after they got infected with this brain parasite called Toxoplasma gondii, if I'm saying that right, they became attracted to it, and that's interesting. It completely altered their fear. So it seems like it can help your fears or make them worse.
Yeah, I think what they're looking at is using it for those individuals who have unreasonable fear concerning phobia.
Yeah, they say that this infects more than half of the world's human population.
What I want to know is, where does the parasite come from?
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
Why do so many of us have it? Is that one of them, food-related parasites,
It infects more than half of the world's human population. Are we born with this thing, or
I
not?
don't know. It sounds like it infects, and it's a parasite. It sounds like you have to acquire it.
Mm-hmm. You're saying this discovery could shed light on how fear is generated in the first place, and how people can potentially better manage phobias. This is researcher Ajay Vyas, a Stanford University neuroscientist. They call this hijacking the mind, so you do catch it? It's a parasitic germ whose primary hosts are cats. However, it can be found in most warm-blooded animals, including an estimated 50 million people in the United States. One study suggests the parasite has altered human behavior enough to shape entire cultures. In cats, the protozoan reproduces sexually, while it reproduces asexually in other animals. The germ seems to especially like infesting the brain, parasites hijacking the mind. Although the disease it causes in humans is rarely dangerous, it is the reason that pregnant women are sometimes told to avoid cat litter boxes.
Right, because
toxoplasmosis is risky for infants and others with compromised immune systems.
Yes.
Some scientists have suspected it might be linked to mental disorders such as schizophrenia and even neuroticism.
That's very interesting because, of course, women, in order to carry babies, the T cells have to be suppressed to a certain extent so they can carry a baby to term. So those with suppressed immunoresponses, and I would think, the normal typified immunocompromising diseases or disorders, you want to stay away from cat litter boxes because that could be very dangerous and life-threatening. But most of the population, or at least a portion of the population, has been exposed or carries the parasite. It's fascinating.
In addition, quote, we show that parasites are a little more likely to be found in amygdala, a region of the brain than in other brain areas. This is important because the amygdala is involved in a variety of fear-related behaviors. Now, I think they're talking about unreasonable fears, right? These are serious phobias,
right?
Not just, oh, I don't like this, or I'm actually really deathly afraid of this thing.
Well, exactly, and I think there needs to be probably a lot more research done neurologically on is there a difference in the location in the brain of the origin of fear and phobia, or is there, for example, if I'm out in the forest, I should probably avoid mountain lions, right? So if I hear a mountain lion, it would be reasonable for me to be. But see, that's also instinct.
Well, instinct too.
Yes,
Yeah, right,
and I'm
you're
wondering, like the rats and being afraid of cat urine. That's survival because a cat could eat you. And I'm thinking, what goes back to the original fight or flight mechanism that is innate or instinctual in warm-blooded beings versus. There are people who are afraid of crossing over a bridge over water. Now, to me, that's so complex. To have a phobia that I can't go across a bridge, which, by the way, in this city, you wouldn't go anywhere. So to be afraid of, a bridge over water or only certain types of bridges.
Right, and then you start getting into more complex things. Where does that come from? Where it came from, whether they were born with that phobia, because then you start getting into past lives and stuff.
Yeah, you start getting into that, interesting area. And, when I was a little kid, I was playing blind man's bluff with my friends. Yeah.
I know the story.
She knows the story. And I was allowed to fall down a 6-foot deep window well. For a kid who was, like 3.5 feet tall, that was frightening. But when I took my blindfold off, it was more frightening because I was down this window well and scarred up and scratched up and everything else. And it was full of spiders. Full of spiders, okay? Shelob's lair to the 10th power, okay? It wasn't one big spider. It was a whole bunch of little spiders. But to me,
like Aragog's lair.
Exactly. It was like, to me, they were all gigantuan spiders. And when they finally did get me out, my father came and got me out, I was bit up quite a bit. So some of them were okay, but some of them were poisonous.
Did you have like 60 bites?
I had 60 bites. Oh. Yeah, 63 bites.
Oh, traumatic experience.
And, after that, I didn't like spiders much for some strange reason.
You didn't like them, or you were just afraid of them?
Well, I didn't like them. I mean, I didn't like them being around me. And of course, you go to camp, you're going to run between the two trees with a giant freaking brown spider, right? You know which one I mean. A giant spider that sits there in late August waiting for something to fly in. You are going to run through the trees with that spider sitting in the web looking at you, and it sees you, but you don't see it. And you run right into it. You're like, and it's like, all the things that happen. Now, do my other friends run into that spider? No. I have friends who have never run into a spider web. I have friends who have never had a spider land on their favorite toy while they're reaching for it and have never had to deal with that. Mine's come up repeatedly. So I wonder to myself, did that experience, along with maybe an interactive parasite or a brain neuron, create a patterning that not only continues to reinforce the fear, but actually subconsciously leads us into the same challenges that the initial experience caused? Maybe. I wonder about that because when I went to Virginia, I lived in a place that kind of resembled an apartment from Creepshow. That when you turned off the lights at night and then you turned them on in your kitchen. Now, they called them potato bugs, but they weren't potato bugs. They were armed artillery-size cockroaches with impenetrable shells that could not be defeated. And I realized that spiders were cool in comparison to like giant tap dancing cockroaches. So I was no longer even slightly intimidated by spiders after that. And I wonder if it's because my brain just put it all together and said, well, you know, your fear of spiders was unreasonable anyway. But look at the size of that cockroach! And by the way, I'm not afraid of cockroaches. I don't like them, but I'm not afraid of them. But, you know, I just wonder. I wonder, how do we decide what we're afraid of? And I wonder, how do we decide what we just kind of look at and go, like a lot of people are afraid of snakes. I'm like,
I love snakes. I love snakes. I love snakes. I love spiders. Now, I don't know if we would consider this a fear or anything, but I will not kill anything.
No,
I will not kill anything. Yeah, I don't know.
Anything.
Yeah. If there's a moth flying around or something, I just shoo it away or blow it away. And Falcon here just smacks them in between her hands, and I'm like, ah! And I will not do that. I will not do that. And if there's a spider somewhere, I will not even move it. Okay.
I will admit I am a hired assassin. You know.
Hi, Prince. Do you have any fears? Yeah.
You know what he's afraid of? He's afraid his rawhide bones are going to run out. That's the only thing he ever worries about. If he looks at the bag and there's none in there...
There's a lot of things that he doesn't like, but I don't know about afraid of it. I think he's
pretty fierce.
He would be afraid of being in a small space, like claustrophobic. Kind of thing. Because
some people who are claustrophobic.
No, I think he'd be claustrophobic because I think his fear's just like mine. That being in a small space if you feel like you can't get out. Only if you feel like you can't get out.
Oh, like elevators. People are afraid of elevators. Or
kind of. I'm not afraid of elevators.
MRIs.
They give me headaches.
You know, when you're going to get an MRI done and you're sitting in the rolling donut that sounds like Star Wars inside. I thought that was cool, but I understand that a lot of people don't like that closeness. How do we know what triggers the differences in our brains in that response?
That's the only one thing that happened to me once when I was little. Well, I was too big for this particular playground, and I was trying to crawl through one of the tunnels. One of the tunnels, and I got stuck.
You got stuck in the tunnel,
and I got stuck, and I couldn't move, and I was trying to move myself, and then of course you start hyperventilating, and that's not good for an asthmatic. So my knees were up to my chest, and I couldn't breathe, and I was trying to move, so that was the only time I actually got scared. But then I started moving so hard, I finally released myself. So sometimes panic helps.
Well, that's my point. Sometimes fear of flight keeps you alive.
Well, fear is good, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, some fear is very good, of course.
You should be afraid if you run into a mountain lion in
fear
the
keeps
woods
you alive.
And get that adrenaline burst and run or hide or be very, very clever, whatever it is that you need to survive the experience. Exactly, survival mode. So what's the difference between the neurological response for survival mode that is reasonable given X or Y circumstance versus the phobia that becomes unreasonable? Do these come from the same thing? Do these come from different areas of the brain? And are there different chemicals involved neurologically that create that response?
Yeah, fear is a very interesting topic.
And I'm sure, I'm going to see if I can get in touch with someone who's in neurophysiology.
Yeah, well, we'll try to get someone to interview.
Exactly.
On this issue.
Because it's fascinating. Because wouldn't it be cool if people could no longer be afraid of the things that were, quote, unreasure
Yeah, other than fears that keep you alive, like survival instincts.
Exactly. Exactly.
But other stuff, like fear of fountains or tall buildings or bridges.
Exactly. Exactly. We've seen all that. So something that gives people confidence again.
Right. So some are obviously caused by traumatic experiences, whether in this life or a previous life. But some of them. Well, what about the other ones? Not all of them are caused by that. So.
Exactly.
So we'll tackle that issue in later weeks. But now we're going to go into our update on our global warming discussion. And
yes, there was a big announcement today.
Now, we're not just going to be talking about global warming again, okay? This is a huge announcement.
It was a huge announcement today.
Everybody needs to know this. Everybody needs to know this. This is so big. I don't care if you believe in global warming or if you think it's all crap, all right? You need to listen to this.
Believe in global warming. It's like,
believe in
Easter Bunny. Do you believe in the Great Pumpkin?
Do you believe in this orange that's sitting here? Yeah.
No, I think the orange is an orangutan. I mean, come on. There's only so much denial you can have.
All right. And this is so important that I'm going to read this whole article because every bit of it is good, all right? And I'm not going to give you the time code to skip it because you need to know it. So this is from MSNBC, and it was just released today at noon, so I'm going to read this. This is experts warn warming will harm society and nature. Yeah, you think? But here we go. An international global warming conference approved a report Friday warning of dire threats to the Earth and to mankind. Yeah. From increased hunger in Africa and Asia to the extinction of species unless the world adapts to climate change and halts its progress. Africa will be hardest hit, the report concluded. By 2020, up to 250 million people are likely to be exposed to water shortages. In some countries, food production could fall by half, it said. Agreement came after an all-night session during which key sections were deleted from the draft, and scientists angrily confronted government negotiators who they feared were watering down their findings. This has been happening for a while, people. Only now it's being reported. It has been a complex exercise, said Rajendra Pachauri, chairman of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Several scientists objected to the editing of the final draft by government negotiators, but in the end agreed to compromises. Yeah, of course they would be angry about that. I'd be angry if I was a scientist and someone would want to change my findings.
Been there,
yeah.
Done that.
However, some scientists vowed never to take part in the process again. I don't blame them. The climax of 5 days of negotiations was reached when the delegates removed parts of a key chart highlighting devastating effects of climate change that kick in with every rise of 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit, and in a tussle over the level of scientific reliability attached to key statements. There was little doubt about the science, which was based on 29,000 sets of data, much of it collected in the last 5 years. For the first time, we are not just arm-waving with models, Martin Perry, who conducted the grueling negotiations, told reporters. The United States, China, and Saudi Arabia raised many of the objections to the phrasing, often seeking to tone down the certainty of some of the more dire projections. Apocalyptic future? The final IPCC report is the clearest and most comprehensive scientific statement to date on the impact of global warming mainly caused by man-induced carbon dioxide pollution. The poorest of the poor in the world, and this includes poor people in prosperous societies, are going to be the worst hit, Pachauri said. People who are poor are least able to adapt to climate change. The report said up to 30% of the Earth's species face an increased risk of vanishing if global temperatures rise only 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit above the average in the 1980s and 90s. Areas that now suffer a shortage of rain will become even more dry, adding to the risks of hunger and disease, it said. The world will face heightened threats of flooding, severe storms, and the erosion of coastlines. This is a glimpse into an apocalyptic future, the Greenpeace environmental group said of the final report. Without action to curb carbon emissions, man's livable habitat will shrink starkly, said Stephen Schneider, a Stanford scientist who was one of the authors. Don't be poor in a hot country. Don't live in Hurricane Alley. Watch out about being on the coasts or in the Arctic, and it's a bad idea to be on high mountains with glaciers melting. We can fix this by investing a small part of the world's economic growth rate, said Schneider. It's trillions of dollars, but it's a very trivial thing. Yeah, money is trivial. Imagine that.
Well, it is.
Negotiators...
It is. This has always been the argument about this is, well, we can't afford to do that. You can't afford not to do that.
Yeah.
You can't afford not to do that.
People just need to get past the money thing.
and just
really
spend what's needed. And I believe, and we'll discuss this in a moment, there are ways to do this so that it can be economically viable and attractive.
Which is what Al Gore's doing.
Even to those who, are just concerned about the bottom line.
Right. Negotiators pored over the 21-page draft meant to be a policy guide for governments. The summary pares down the full 1,500-page scientific assessment of the evidence of climate change so far and the impact it will have on the Earth's most vulnerable people and ecosystems. Let me go to the next page here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy to not do anything and simply say, well, okay, we're up that creek, without paddles. No, you got to do something. You got to be solution-centered.
Mm-hmm. Clear signal. More than 120 nations attended the meeting. Each word was approved by consensus, and any change had to be approved by the scientists who drew up that section of the report. Though weakened by the deletion of some elements, the final report will send a very, very clear signal to governments, said Yvo de Boer, the UN's top climate official. The summary will be presented to the G8 summit of the world's richest nations in June, when the European Union is expected to renew appeals to President Bush to join in international efforts to control emissions of fossil fuels. This year's series of reports by the IPCC were the first in 6 years from the prestigious body of some 2,500 scientists formed in 1988. Public awareness of climate change gave the IPCC's work unaccustomed importance and fueled the intensity of the closed-door negotiations during the 5-day meeting. The urgency of this report, prepared by the world's top scientists, should be matched by an equally urgent response from governments, said Hans Verolm, director of the Global Climate Change Program of the Worldwide Fund for Nature. Doing nothing is not an option, he said. Now, here's this is funny, sort of. Battle over the word very.
Yeah, that was rich.
During the final session, get this, the conference snagged over a sentence that said the impact of climate change already were being observed on every continent and in most oceans. There is a very high confidence that many natural systems are being affected by regional climate changes, particularly temperature increases, said the statement on the first page of text. But China insisted on striking the word very, injecting a measure of doubt into what the scientists argued were indisputable observations. The report's 3 authors refused to go along with the change, resulting in an hours-long deadlock that was broken by a U.S. compromise to delete any reference to confidence levels.
Oh, God.
Just let them keep the word very in it. It is the second of 4 reports from the IPCC this year. The first report in February laid out the scientific case for how global warming is happening. The second report is the So What report, explaining what the effects of global warming will be. European Environment Commissioner Stavros Dimas said the report will spur the EU's determination to curb greenhouse gas emissions. The world needs to act fast if we are to succeed in stabilizing climate change and thereby prevent its worst impacts, Dimas said in a statement. And they have a regional breakdown on here. For the first time, the scientists broke down their predictions into regions and forecasts that climate change will affect billions of people, and this link will be in the show notes. North America will experience more severe storms with human and economic loss and cultural and social disruptions. Don't want that. It can expect more hurricanes, floods, droughts, heat waves, and wildfires. We got plenty of those last year. Coasts will be swamped by rising sea levels. In the short term, crop yields may increase by 5 to 20% from a longer growing season, but will plummet if temperatures rise by 7.2 degrees Fahrenheit. And parts of Asia are threatened with massive flooding and avalanches from melting Himalayan glaciers. Europe will also see its alpine glaciers disappear. Australia's Great Barrier Reef will lose much of its coral due to bleaching from even moderate increases in sea temperatures, the report said. And Al Gore was on today after a showing of An Inconvenient Truth and was talking about this very issue. There was a special on with some extended scenes, and we're talking about the bleaching of the coral reefs and more in depth about population changes and the increase in storms and wildfires and everything.
And the increased intensity of the type of storms that we'll be experiencing. And the reason, for those of you who go, oh, what's the big deal about the coral reef? Okay, this is why it's a big deal. A change in the coral reef structure means increased acidity in the ocean waters. That increased acidity means that any crustacean will have difficulty in forming its shell.
In forming its shell, yeah.
Which means that it impacts lobsters, crabs, and a plethora of things we eat.
Now, meanwhile, jellyfish love the acid. But jellyfish absolutely love the acid, but that's bad for people, all right? Because there have now been articles out there, and beaches have been closing due to jellyfish. Because these jellyfish, you think they're about the size of your fist. No, these, which feed on this huge amount of acid, have now grown to 6 feet. These look like things out of a sci-fi movie. This was on ABC News tonight. They look like out of a sci-fi movie. You see, they showed these pictures. And they're these gigantic 6 feet, 10 feet long jellyfish. Jellyfish that can zap you.
Yes, because jellyfish don't feel good wrapped around your legs. Personal experience.
They're huge.
And
they're huge. So that's bad.
Unless you want to have jellyfish on the glass. Not very nutritive and kind of hard to eat. Mm-hmm. So we need to do something now, and I know there are people who say, you know what, this is overwhelming to me. I don't need any more bad news. What can I do? Okay, so here I am. Falcon is going to discuss actual solutions that are things, one, normal average people can do.
And we've talked about this before.
But I'm going to get even more specific.
All right.
And even discuss things, dare I say, that countries can do, that communities can do, that can help solve some of the problem and also take care of your own community.
Because we want to be part of the solution.
Exactly.
We don't want to be a part of the problem.
I'm just going to sit here and talk about doom and gloom. We talk about this so we can get to the solutions.
Exactly. So, once we pull you out of denial...
for those of you that are in it. I don't think anybody who listens to the Falcon and Dove is in denial, because we have an extremely intelligent audience.
Yes, we do.
Brilliant people. I can tell by the emails we receive. Yes, brilliant, artistic people. Oh, by the way, thanks for the poetry. And more poetry this week. It's wonderful.
So those of you who are not in denial, please spread
and
the
already
word.
know.
And pull people who are in denial out of denial.
Okay, so here it is. Here's my suggestions. These are my humble suggestions coming from the Falcon's viewpoint, flying over the scene. 1, I don't care if you have a postage stamp, have a garden. Okay, you've got a black thumb. You know what? Go out there, get herbs in pots. You can't kill them, okay? Just a little bit of water. Most things you can't kill. I mean, there are those individuals who somehow do it. But becoming more responsible with your own sustainable environment becomes very important. If you really, truly believe that you will assassinate anything you touch, then you need to get together with your community. You know all those vacant lots sitting around town? Here's what you do. You go down to the city-county building one day, just one day. Find out who owns that lot. Find out if they're local or if there's some out-of-town person who used to own some shack that was there that was an apartment building that's long collapsed of its own free will because they never took care of it. And then you go to the city or your township or your borough and you say, look, I want that lot cleaned up. I want that lot cleaned up because I'm getting together at the local YWCA, YMCA, my church, and we are going to clean up that lot as soon as you get the heavy stuff out of the way. We're going to till that lot over, and we're going to make a community garden. Now, I know you're thinking, what in the world is a community garden gonna do with respect to global warming? And I'll tell you, if lots and lots of people do this, one thing that happens immediately is that you are planting plants that, guess what, eat CO2. Yes, we have a symbiotic relationship with plants. Now, is it going to solve all the problems? Of course it isn't. But you know what it is going to do? It's going to make your community more enfranchisable. It's going to make you more enriched. Your kids are going to have a great time. They're going to learn an awful lot about agriculture. And you're going to have some fresh organic vegetables. And you'll actually know what's in the food.
Right. The reason why people don't do this is because they think that it won't make a large difference. So they don't do it. Now, if everybody who believes that would make a garden, it would make a difference.
Yeah, bring your own garden tools. You get together with your neighbors. You get some seeds. I know there's some organizations that will give you seeds.
You know how cheap seeds are?
Get you started.
25 cents.
There you go. Get you started. You go to the dollar store, they're 10 cents a pack. Okay? Mm-hmm. Just think of what you could do. Get your garden started. Go to some seed sharing places. Talk to your local co-op. But get together with your neighbors. Meet your neighbors. They're probably not nearly as scary as you think they are. In places where they are as scary as you think they are, having lived there, let me tell you, nothing helps more than getting your young kids off the street and working in the garden, working somewhere where they're making a difference.
So you'll improve the community at the same time.
You improve the community at the same time.
Improve relations.
You cannot be out on the street causing trouble if you're looking forward to getting out of school so that you can go and help tend the neighborhood garden. It makes a difference. You can help the elderly in your community. They love the idea of getting some summer squashes and some early cabbages from the kids in the neighborhood, having that delivered to their door. There's somebody to talk to, somebody to share their old stories with, wisdom to be gleaned. Mm-hmm. It works. Now, suppose you're living in one of these places that's going to be really, really drought prone, and there's a large portion of the center of the U.S. that's going to begin to have this problem. We are going to have weather issues. This is going to be a factor. Then we have to start looking at alternative ways to plant and grow. Now, I need to do a little research on this because it's been a while since I looked at it, and this story really broke this evening. And I know the guy who started Cuisinart has an island resort for vegetarians out in the Caribbean on an island whose soil would not be conducive to growing most of the food they're growing. And they have it domed in, they have hydroponic systems with some soil sampling, and they grow it vertically on screens. They grow food. And I'm going to get some more information on that because I know about this resort. And you know, you have the saltwater issue. You can change salt water to fresh water, but you have to do it carefully. Is the equipment expensive? Yes. Yes, it is. But is it worth it to feed people who otherwise wouldn't be fed? Absolutely. For those of you who may be in areas where, well, you may be underwater in 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Come on, let's get a grip on it. Let's deal with it. You may want to start looking for some land someplace that isn't going to be underwater. I mean, you know, everybody's got, you know, friends that they know of the beach house that's been there for years. Look at where it is. Look at the demographics. If it's on a cliff that's 60 feet high, you're probably okay. If it isn't, then you need to start thinking about, okay, what can we do to protect this property? Can we do something to protect this property? Or are we just fooling ourselves? Maybe I need to go buy myself 10 acres out in the middle of the woods someplace and think about making that the family home. One, you're going to have an investment in land. And there are some places, not only in the U.S., but around the world, where you can buy land very inexpensively. Right now, get in before everybody else wants to. And, you know, if you don't need it, you've got a nice rural place that you can call your own that your kids will really appreciate. That maybe they can go and breathe some fresh air sometime. Maybe, if we do all the right things. Okay, little tiny things. Another little tiny thing you could do. We talked about this before. Change your light bulbs. Take out the old Edison light bulbs. I know, he's probably rolling in his grave right now. Put in...
But he would probably be an advocate for the
Well,
environment.
he absolutely would. He would be an advocate for this. As long as he came up with it.
It's progress.
And get some Sylvania, some GE light bulbs, the ones that will last 10 years, and save you bundles and bundles of cash. These are things you could do today. Plant trees. Trees are very, very important. They really absorb a lot of CO2. If we did that more in more places, we would have a much better environment, a balanced environment.
Right, and since we're using so many resources on the earth and cutting down the trees and burning down the trees, not only are we releasing CO2 into the atmosphere and thickening up the atmosphere and making the earth warmer, but by cutting down the trees, we're cutting down and burning the stuff that sucks up all that stuff that we're making. So it's a double whammy to the planet.
Now, I know there's somebody sitting there thinking, well, you know what, we need to cut trees because we need lumber and we need to build things.
Blah, blah,
Here's the thing. Up near Bayes Mills, the Menominee have been working the forest for thousands of years.
You don't need everything doesn't have to be made out of wood.
They can take... I remember the figure being rather high, but I won't quote it. Board feet of wood out of the forest every year. They run a sustainable forest industry. Why? Because they selective cut. Now, I know that sounds insane to the clear-cutting advocate, but they do it, they make money, and the forest is sustainable. The forest is sustainable, which means you can make an awful lot of money and still be able to manage the forest without clear-cutting, ruining the soil, causing erosion, and taking away the very vehicles we need to improve CO2. Because in addition to CO2, with that ice that's melting out there, trapped methane is escaping. And let me tell you, you think CO2 is bad?
That's gonna get nasty.
Methane is even worse. And trapping greenhouse gases. It is CO2 on steroids. So, and not as easy to remediate.
Imagine if everybody in the world planted one tree. Imagine what would happen with that.
Heck, plant 10.
Plant 10 trees, yeah.
Earth Day's coming up. Get 10 trees. Plant them.
Love the earth.
Yeah. Deciduous trees in deciduous regions. Plant trees in your region that are actually indigenous to your region. Don't plant trees that don't belong there. If you need help with that, visit your local nursery. Talk to your local arbor group. They're going to tell you what would be the best trees to have in your region. And it'll be a great time with your kids, and then you can take them back to that hillside, to those forests, and say, here's the trees you planted at 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Make it an annual event.
Yeah, make it a tradition in
Earth
your
Day's
family.
coming up. I'm going to do something for the earth. You know, I remember the first photograph I ever saw of the earth. The first photograph anybody ever saw of the earth.
Anybody.
And it was taken on Apollo 8 on Christmas Eve, 1968. And I remember this because I was a little kid. And Christmas Day, the newspaper was on the porch, right next to the milk, you know, those little milk canisters where they used to deliver the milk and put it in there. The guy would come around at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So you go outside, you get your milk, and you get the paper. And I opened up the paper, and on the cover of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, it said, Merry Christmas, Peace on Earth. It was the first photograph of the Earth from space.
In color.
In color, yeah, which they never did.
The first color picture ever.
And that was just the coolest thing, because first of all, I didn't have a color TV. So, we could see the Earth. And it was so beautiful. And I remember showing that to my dad and saying, look what Santa Claus brought us. Look at this great present. We have a picture of the Earth.
We have a picture of our
And
home.
I just thought that was the greatest thing. Today, kids are probably a little more cavalier about it, but you know, it was hard to get that picture. And then you look at all the other rocks out there, and they don't look like our rock.
No.
We are the third rock from the sun. And our rock is cool. Mm-hmm. It's very blue with lots of clouds, and it's pretty. And we live here.
And this picture was in Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth.
Yeah, it was.
And he really emphasized this point of how that was the first image of the Earth, and he also showed the full image of the Earth where the sun was directly behind them when they took the picture, and it's the most used picture ever. And he was really emphasizing, this is the only home we have.
Exactly.
Right
and this was 68, and 68 had been an interesting year. Those of you who were around in 68 know what I'm talking about. Great music, weird politics, assassinations. It was a really strange year.
But the picture of the Earth was
was a Christmas present to me. It was like everything's going to be, it was hope. It was hope. And I really thought when I was a high school student and a college student that people were going to be much more concerned about making the changes that were going to need to be made to control greenhouse gases than the attitude that was taken at the time. And I guess there was just a tremendous amount of disbelief. I don't know why. Maybe I was too young to understand the dynamics of it all. But to me, it was kind of like if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it may be a duck. Probably is a duck. It's probably not an orangutan. So, now is the time to remove the delusion that we have a rhinoceros or an orangutan. We in fact have an orange, and we really do have global warming, but we really do have a pretty Earth. So, let's do what we can. I'm going to continue making these little suggestions every week. Every week I'm going to make these suggestions on how we can make our world a little bit better.
Because we want to be part of the solution.
There you go.
And you should too.
And you should too. Now, speaking of solutions, we mentioned earlier, for all those of you who are now getting your acceptances in the mail, if you didn't have them already, and now your financial aid packages are arriving and your parents are going, ah! Okay. I've run across something that I think needs to be brought up, and that is that not all financial aid officers are familiar with all things at all places at all times. And I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not a financial aid officer. I'm a parent. So, parents, get on the internet and research really your FAFSA, your FAFSA, and your BEOG and your SEOG, and be sure to call those 800 numbers from your government because, and I say this because
they work for us.
They work for us, first of all, because it's our taxpayer money that pays into this whole system. And you're about to send your kid off to school, which is the most expensive venture you will have. Forget about your house being the most expensive investment you're going to make, because that pales in comparison to your kid's college education. So you need to have your questions answered, and you need to know where every dollar goes. And I've run across something that I think is important enough to bring up. As we look at the financial aid packages coming in, I've noticed that some schools seem to have a different figure on what your BEOG or SEOG for your kid should be versus others. And I actually had an institution, I won't name them because I don't want to embarrass them, had somebody tell me that something I thought my daughter was eligible for because it appeared on other financial aid packages, she actually wasn't eligible for at their institution. And that kind of surprised me because it had shown up on 3 other ones. So I went, well, why? And the aid officer said, well, because, you can only be eligible for that if you have this, and if you have da-da-da-da, and if it's a blue moon on Sunday, but it's rising in Sagittarius. And, of course, your kid isn't. She's a Scorpio ascendant, therefore she's not eligible. And I'm going, what? And as it turned out, my kid is eligible. So here's the thing. This year, there has been an increase in SEOG funding. It can range from $100 to $4,000. You need to have a direct conversation with your financial aid officer. Suppose you got a financial aid package in and the ends are screaming at each other across a vast valley, something that resembles, the Grand Canyon. You can appeal to your financial aid officer for your student and say, Can't you do something more with this? Here, let me give you a rundown of why you might be able to find a few more $100,000 around somewhere. And you can do that. And there's an appeals process at each university, or at least there should be. As far as I know, there is for every university. Appeal to them kindly, nicely. Keep the realm of communication open. But make sure that they're up on things like when numbers increase, like they did on SEOG. Some seem to know, some don't seem to know. This year, there's something called the Academic Competitiveness Grant. It's not very big. It's about $750, $1,300 a year for sophomores, but every little bit helps, right? And the criteria for the Academic Competitiveness Grant differs by state, but it's ultimately the school that has accepted your kid that makes the decision as to whether or not your kid gets that money or not. Go online, look at the criteria for your state, see if your kid meets it, see if their school curriculum meets it. If you haven't met it yet, see if the kid can take a university class here at the end of the school year, get it in, one of those 3-week jobs, make sure they get it in so that they can qualify for that. And make sure, if your kid's super smart and has a challenging core curricula, they probably are going to get this. And you need to call up your financial aid officer and say, hey, excuse me, why is my kid's academic competitiveness grant included in the financial aid package? And they'll go, oh, we should cover that. And they'll probably add it. But they won't do that if you don't ask. Students, this is your future, and might I add, your college loan debt as well. Less loan, more prosperity. So anything that's going to cut your loans down can be a help to you. So please, please, please do that. In the upcoming weeks, we're going to talk about a number of things you could do in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s to help improve your financial picture. No matter how incredibly challenged you are in terms of finances, can't be any worse than I am, and how modest your income may be. There's something everybody can do at every stage. So I want to make sure that as you're going over those financial aid packages, you look at that. And don't be afraid to ask for merit money from the school. If you've got a kid with a 4.0 GPA who's taken a whole bunch of AP classes, whether they score a 4 or 5 on the test or not, ask them for some merit money. Say, you know what? My kid's darn smart and would be very, very a big asset to your institution. And don't be afraid to tell one institution that another institution gave you X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. They work for you.
Okay, they work for you, and they're allowed to compete for your student. It's just the way it is. It's business, nothing personal. Because at the end, when your brilliant son or daughter goes to that university, they are going to create a legacy for that university. Every wonderful accomplishment, every door knocking over opportunity that they bring to the school, every sales agreement, and as an alumnus, every dollar they bring back to the institution, as will their children and grandchildren.
You are the consumer. You are the consumer, and you are purchasing the school, basically, and you have to see what they're going to give you.
Don't automatically assume that you can only go to a state school because you can't afford a private school. Do not assume that. If you are still eligible for rolling admission and there's a school that you want to go to, roll the die, make the application, because you don't know what can happen. Have several schools to choose from, and then pick your best match, kids. Pick your best match. And I know, the affordability thing is huge, but before going into mega debt, make sure you're getting every grant that you can get. And keep going to fastweb.com, FASTWEB.com, and applying for those scholarships.
All right, next, we've got another problem. I know, more problems. Other than global warming, we've got sunspots.
Solar flare, yes.
Solar flares. I know we're running out of time, so we'll get to this quickly. Californians have long been bracing for the big one in terms of an earthquake, but the sun lobs flares that are the most violent events in the solar system. A large flare releases 1,000,000 times more energy than the largest earthquake.
Wow.
Think about that for a second.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and scientists are concerned about this. The relative void between the sun and the earth is loaded with electrically charged particles, radiation, magnetic fields, and electromagnetic energy. The effects of this space weather can range from damage to satellites to disruption of entire power grids on Earth. Space weather can...
That's a problem.
Yeah. Space weather can wreak havoc on a planet-wide basis, and a look back more than 145 years ago may offer clues as to how harmful a space superstorm might be, given our dependence on technological systems.
So this happened 145 years ago, when we weren't as dependent as we are now. Now we're really technology addicts.
Understanding and dealing with such consequences was a key issue for nearly 350 industry, academic, and government experts taking part in Space Weather Week, held here April 25th to the 28th. Let me jump down a little bit. Here we go. Of the nearly 300 geosynchronous Earth-orbiting GEO satellites in operation, quote, such a storm may only actually kill a few dozen of the oldest systems, but will likely reduce the operating life of all the other satellites by 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
This was Odenwald. That would, in the long run, be a bigger economic catastrophe.
Now, when they fail, do they fall out of the sky, or do they just sit there?
They fail. They just sit there.
Yikes.
They're not going to fall out of the sky.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're not going to have, like, satellites coming down all over the place.
You might. It depends on when they get nailed.
Okay, that's the disturbing part of that.
Yeah, Aldenwald projects billions of dollars of lost GEO satellite profit during an 1859 caliber superstorm. The model he has used to reach ballpark numbers includes a realistic treatment of how least transponders are actually shifted to neighboring satellites from failing quote-unquote host satellites. The estimated profit loss tallies about $30 billion. That figure is expected to climb higher as he mixes in various types of catastrophic satellite anomalies. Future work will include collateral economic impacts, pushing the profit loss upwards of $70 billion. The GEO satellites themselves generate about $97 billion in revenue each year. A superstorm may well eat up most of that revenue for at least a few years. And these satellites run your power grids, run your power lines. If one of those satellites goes down, then you could have power loss for days.
Or weeks.
Or weeks.
So, GPS problem. Our airlines are run on this.
Yeah.
Some of our super speed trains. Yikes. So, we need to create a warning and backup system of protection so that when these solar flares occur, we have a way of shutting down in brownout style these grids temporarily so that we don't have a massive blackout and GPS loss and have planes flying around without adequate data and trains and
right. So really there
automobiles.
There isn't much we can do about this, is there?
Well,
because it's the sun.
We need to have an update of the warning system that we have in place, and I believe the contract ends in 2010, which means we need to renew that.
Yeah.
Look, give NASA their money. Okay?
Right. No, but I mean, there's nothing we can do to stop it. That's what I mean.
I don't believe there's anything we can do to stop a solar flare issue.
A solar flare issue. We can stop global warming, but
all we can do is prepare for it.
Prepare for it. And
what can individuals do? Well, get a backup generator. Those generators, those nice Honda generators, those aren't bad.
A bomb shelter is pretty nice, too.
Yeah, you might need that with a little radiation problem.
Radiation is bad, all right.
You might
too
also
much
think
of it
about,
is bad.
windmills and solar panels for yourself.
Yes, Prince thinks so, too.
Yes, he thinks so, too. What he's thinking is, hey, it's about that time to wrap up.
Yep.
That's what he's thinking.
Yep, we're about to wrap up. So, one thing, one observation I made earlier about the global warming thing, about that global warming article I read earlier, was that, they're starting to talk about, if you notice this, they're starting to talk about adapting to the climate change. Adapting to the climate change. Well, first of all, we should try to fix the problem. And then if we've done everything we can, then we should adapt to it. Now, I understand that they're trying to prepare everybody for this and adapt and help everybody adapt to this inevitable thing. But the whole problem is that a lot of people have been in denial about this for so long that now it's come to the point where we're going to have to adapt to all the climate changes, whether we like it or not. And whether we do anything or not, but what we should really focus on is trying to solve this problem and not just let it happen and adapt to it. So I just want to emphasize that throughout the whole thing, throughout this whole process of while we should try to fix the problem while adapting to the inevitable. That's all I'm saying. Oh wow! Well, there was a lot of topics this week. We didn't get to all of them, but we got to a lot of the big ones, so that's good. And I guess we'll finish with a quote of the week. It is horrifying that we have to fight our own government to save the environment. Ansel Adams. And that is perfect for the discussion this week. So, as always, if you have a topic that you'd like us to discuss, feel completely free to email us at falcondove, FALCONDOVE, at areasimmons.com, AREYASIMMONS.com. Send us anything. Don't send us spam, but send us anything from articles to topics you want us to talk about, to send us book reviews, and we'll read it on the show. Movie reviews, anything. We'll talk about anything you like. So, and we want to hear from you. Do you think we're doing a good job? Send us email, because we love it. We love everything that you've been sending. Keep it up, and as always, listen to the show. Thank you very much.
This is the Falcon.
This is the Dove.
Have a wonderful, blessed holiday, whether you're celebrating Passover or Easter.
Happy Easter.
Enjoy yourselves. Take care. Have a blessed week. Peace out.
Peace out. Well, here is a video of some of my birthday party. It's 30 seconds, and I thought you'd like to hear it, so here we go.
Ready? Happy birthday.